So let's refocus back onto what we're doing. And just before there's that wonderful bit of news, we were talking about regressions, and when specifically we're talking a little bit about experiences we can have with people. So did you all get a chance to do a quick trance, then grasp the awareness of a sensation, and then focus your attention onto that, right? What kind of things happened? Anyone? Go ahead.
The sensation began to change or intensify.
Thank you. So this is a common thing, right? How many people had the sensation intensify? About half the group. How many people had the sensation shift in some way or change in some way? By the other half of the group, right? This is pretty much what happens. So now you have the ability, where attention goes, energy flows. Oh, incidentally, those of you who shifted the sensation, did it start off, how many of you did it start off as an unpleasant sensation and it became less unpleasant? Okay, so about a third of the people who had that. Okay. So where attention goes, energy flows. That's a pretty good demonstration of that. Now let's see if we can do the same, but rather than a random sensation, let's see if we can select a sensation, an experience. Will that be interesting? Find a different partner, do the same exercise. I've seen some very creative inductions. That's good. Keep doing that. But remember, the purpose here is not the induction. It's what you do afterwards. So just spend no more than a minute maximum on the induction and the boilerplates. And then the next piece is exactly the same exercise, really. Only instead of asking for a sensation, so you can have one of two suggestions. Either, in a moment, you're going to become aware of a very pleasant feeling, a pleasant emotion. So that's kind of a general version. If you're going to be more specific, you can actually choose and let them choose maybe ahead of time if they want to experience something. Happiness, love, excitement, something like that, a pleasant emotion. Clear it with them beforehand so that make sure that they actually want to experience this, because not all emotions are appropriate for an individual. And then give them a process for that. So in a moment you're going to experience a pleasant sensation. Let me know when you find it. Silence. Got it. Great. And now use your echo effect and all the other tools you have for focusing attention to do what you just did now. You focus attention on the emotion and just notice what happens. Is that simple? Yes?
Looking for a pleasant emotion.
A pleasant emotion. Very important. A pleasant emotion. All right? Otherwise, you'll do to me what Shay just did to me when she told me that he's gone to ER. I was thinking like, oh my God, did he have a more serious allergy than I thought he did? Or it sounded like just like crying or whatever. So it's a pleasant sensation. If you go for anything other than a pleasant emotion, do you know what's going to happen? Stay calm. Then what do you do? What do you do then? And then? And then? That's what you end up having to do if you go with anything other than a pleasant emotion. A microphone back here, please. Oh, okay. One here, and then go ahead, James.
Yeah. What was the order? We have the induction. We know the emotion going in. Or do we find it after the sensation?
Well, it's your choice. If you want to go after a specific emotion, like say happiness, you ask them before you do trance. Do you want to experience happiness? That's what I would go for. Or do you want to experience something else? And let them choose, right? If you already have something that might go, oh, sure, I'll go with happiness, or I'll go with love. If you don't want to bother with that, I'm fine with that. Just give a general instruction for a pleasant emotion. It's going to be emotion that will arise, and let you know when they find it, right? Then the unconscious gets to choose. I don't mind which way you go. One is a little bit more conscious oriented, it's a bit more laser focused. The other one is a little bit more unconscious oriented and allows things to arise which may be more appropriate at the time. I don't feel strongly. You get to choose what you want. You're a hypnotist now, so you're going to have to make these tough choices as well. Okay?
So it's emotion, and then
an emotion.
Then they go down, and then they have a sensation.
Well, they've got to know how they... I don't know how people know they have emotions, but usually it's because they have a feeling. That's why we call them feelings, right? So I'm not interested in like itching or scratching. I'm talking about this is an emotion. Here's where I feel it, and you just put your attention back onto that, and notice what happens to that emotion. I'm only interested in emotions, nothing else. Okay? Rashid?
That was my question. Whether we would actually focus. That was my question, just to make sure that it wasn't focused on a part of the body. So there's no emotion. Got it.
They get to find it wherever they do. The thing you're looking for now is an emotion, and a pleasant one at that. Go ahead.
We missed the description of what we're doing.
Okay.
But
I'll take you through it very quickly.
Okay.
Put them in trance. in less than a minute. Add boilerplate 1 in less than a minute. So this whole here might be about a minute in total. Now, what we did before, it's a really simple exercise. Basically, find a sensation somewhere in your body, which is like not exactly rocket science, is it? And then when they find it, you reflect attention back onto it, and they notice that that sensation grows, for the most part, or changes in some way. So something happens. Now we're going to do the exact same thing, only this time, when trance has been induced and boilerplate 1 has been inserted as your general guidelines, you're going to ask for a pleasant emotion. Right? If you want to go for a specific emotion, you ask them up front before the trance begins if they're okay with that emotion. And otherwise, just go for a general pleasant emotion and let the unconscious decide what it's going to be. So when you get to the third step, you might say something like, in a moment, you're going to experience a very pleasant emotion. I want you to just search inside until you find it and let me know when you do. Or let me know when it arises.
That's the end?
And that's it. Well, no. Once it's arisen, you do the same again. You put focus back onto that emotion. So let's say you're feeling happiness. So where do you feel that happiness? It's in my belly. Great. So as you think about your belly, notice what happens to it. And if they use a certain word, you use the echo effect, happiness. You're having happiness, a happiness sensation. So focus on the happiness sensation and tell me what happens to it now. Again, this is not rocket science. It'll take you 2 or 3 minutes at best. At best. Yeah. So do the same thing, one way then the other, change on your own time, and please come back as quickly as possible because this is just like the warm-up exercises for something else. Okay, guys? you guys are having far too good a time. The problem about doing an exercise like this with good hypnotists, actually with great hypnotists, is they end up having such a good time, they end up doing way too much, like way more than expected. Because you can, right? So all I was really looking for is, can you find an emotion? Can you go after one and make it happen? And can you intensify it? Did you all do that? Yes. All right? It's surprising how much control or influence you have over emotions when you use hypnosis, right? Yes. But you have it. So would you be interested in how to start using this in a more practical sense? Yes? Yes? Well, let's introduce you to the idea. Has anyone heard of the idea of an affect bridge? Yes? It's a bridge of which little affects are like little sheep type things. This is an affect bridge. The negative events are all linked by an emotion. It comes back to the idea of state-dependent learning. Whatever state that you're in when you first learn something, that encodes the memory, so when you're in that state again, you access it again. So we're going to use the state, the emotion, as a bridge to events. Because that's going to be like a fishing reel that tells you, if I keep following this reel, it's actually more like Hansel and Gretel with the breadcrumbs. If I keep following these pebbles, these breadcrumbs, I'll get to the place I want to get to. Right? So, how do we use it? It's very simple. You started with an emotion, so you basically set a line. Right? Were these pleasant emotions? Did you like these things? You're going to love what's about to happen. So, you're in the present tense with an emotion. So now your job is to start navigating time based on emotion. That's an affect bridge. So all you're going to do is you're going to bounce back to a previous event where they felt the same way. The instructions are so simple, it's unreal. You get the emotion, you intensify the emotion, and now you tell the person, and you give them a roadmap for it, remember the association. I'll count from 1 to 3, at the count of 3. You're going to move backwards in time to a previous time you felt this, and then you just supply the label they gave you. A previous time when you felt this. Ready to do that now? 3, 2, 1. So this is basically doing already a regression at this point. A regression stroke revivification. Right? And the important thing now is, so you've bounced backwards in time. The important thing that happens is, just like with instant inductions, it's what happens immediately after they start moving back in time. You have to orient them to the experience. But now, you know how to orient people, don't you? You did it in the dynamic mental imagery induction, right? Where are you? What do you sense? See, what do you sense? Is it daytime? Is it nighttime? Are you alone? Are you with people? You ask questions about the experience. You don't imply answers in this time. You're like, are there people there, aren't there? Right? That's not what you want, because that's how you create false memories. You're just offering options. Are you alone or with people? Give them polar options so they can choose between them, and allow them to orient into the memory. Does that make sense? Now, you want them to remain in the experience so that they're feeling it. The emotion is the bit that's going to make sure it's not a hyperamnesia, but either a revivification or a true regression. Does that make sense to you guys? But this is nothing. You've done way harder than this already, right? Think about it. You've done way harder than this. So, have any questions on what you're doing with this? Sure. Induced trance, the boilerplate stuff. Induced trance, set the safety statements, etc. Find a positive emotion. Intensify it, just as you've done a moment ago. Now you bounce back based on the emotion. You give them some kind of mechanism. Go back, basically the instructions go back to another time where you felt the same way. Then you maybe count them back or say, let me know when you have it. I don't care how you do it. Just don't take 5 hours to do it. It's just going to be a pretty quick thing. Right? When they get there, importantly, you want to orient them to the experience. So, what do you see? What do you sense? Is it daytime? Is it nighttime? Are you inside? Are you outside? Are you with people? Are you alone? Basic questions around the experience so that it begins to settle into a real experience for them. So basically now, and then of course, if you're going to be really clever, it's not part of the exercise, but I can't stop you doing this. If you start doing all the stuff you did with the revivification, the echo and the present tense and all that sort of stuff, well, I'm not going to come around each individual and slap you on the wrist because that's not what the exercise is about, right? So, I suppose you can do whatever you want. But I'm encouraging you not to because, it's not part of the exercise. Okay, guys? Now, importantly, once they've had the experience, let them play around with the memory, maybe describe charming parts of the experience, etc. Once you have a full aspect of the memory where you can almost visualize what's going on, so you have a full representation as the therapist, then you bring them back. So let the scene, how do you bring them back? The scene fades. Now there's no need about the safety statement because they're safe already. The scene fades, come back to the room, and bring back whatever, pleasant part of the experience you want to bring back. Right? You know the language, but basically, orient them back to the present day before you bring them back out of trance, so that they don't come back, as a 5-year-old. Unless they have a beard, in which case, bring him back as 5 years old, because I want to see this. Yeah, tomorrow everyone's going to come in shaved. Okay, we have a microphone here.
So is there
Is it on?
a certain number that we're looking to bridge back? We're going
Just
to
once.
one?
Just
Oh,
go once.
Okay.
Just go one experience, and I actually like the way you think, because you'll go to more experiences later. Right now, it's very simple. You do what you did, add one experience, orient it, enjoy it, come back, and then we'll do more. Sound good?
Yep.
All right, then let's take a little longer. You need to now get 5 minutes apiece. Now, guys, I will not give you a time to turn around, so if you do it in 3 minutes, just turn instantly, and you have more time to do this. But in 10 minutes, we'll be back here. Was that good? Or should I say, was it good for you too? So, are you enjoying this? Are you having fun with this? Yes. Pretty easy to navigate, experiences via the affect bridge. It's pretty straightforward, right? The beauty of using the affect bridge is that emotions overload consciousness. They overload the critical factor. So the more pleasant the experience is, the better the regression or revivification you end up having becomes. So, you win both ways. Did you guys find it easy to orient to the new experience and to get some reasonably detailed descriptions of who, when, where, how, why, and all that sort of stuff? Yeah? And that's easy to navigate, right? It's not a difficult process. I mean, this is why I love the last few days. Although emotionally we get a little bit more intense, compared to the things you've already done, everything you do now is just like child's play, right? So, the break is starting in about 10 seconds, which is when I'll shut up. Come back here in 1/4 come back here at 10 past, and at 1/4 on the dot we'll begin again, and we'll take it from there, right? Here you go. So you having fun? Some interesting things happening? Was that easy? Yes. Did you notice how, just to speed things up a little bit, do you notice how doing that actually intensifies, the act of going back can actually intensify the moment again? Did anyone notice that? Yeah? And it's pretty easy to navigate around inside people's minds now, right? You've been doing it for, 3 days? So it's not exactly rocket science anymore for you. Or am I wrong? No? So do you want to do a little bit more of this? Okay. So we're going to do exactly the same thing again. So far, you have found an emotion, intensified it, bounced back, oriented into it, had an experience and brought it back, right? So now we're going to do the same thing, only this time, rather than looking for one experience, you bounce back to one experience, I want you guys to bounce back to several, including one in the, so we say 2 to 7, or 8, let's say 8 actually, 2 to 8-year-old range. Okay? Now, it should be, remember, you're focusing purely on positive. If there's an ambiguity involved, right? If it's an overall positive feeling, change to a different feeling. We don't want to have an ambiguity, we want to have clarity for now, because you're only practicing how to maneuver inside time using emotions. That's all that you're practicing. Make sense? So go for a clear emotion, it's a positive emotions. You're a hypnotist, so you can call up anything you want, right? So navigate on a purely positive emotion, give people the time of their life. This is kind of like, you know, they say that if you have an accident and you think you're going to die, that your life flashes in front of your eyes. Well, I don't think you should wait until you're dying. Right? And you get to choose all the good experiences. So choose maybe 3 or 4 bounces. Just make sure that as you go backwards in time, the thing to ask them, you know, have you experienced this good feeling before? Or is it maybe the first time? Right? Does it feel new? Or is it kind of familiar? And then send them back until it's like a new feeling. It's the first time. This is like Christmas, guys. You will see people light up like it's like you've been given a Christmas present, because you actually get to see them the first time they realize they're experiencing love or happiness or something like that. So purely out of your voyeuristic reasons, take them back to this age range, because it is one of the most charming things you will see. Seriously. I mean, you thought Dave was excited up here. Wait till he's seen when he's 2 years old. Yeah, still are. So, did you get what we're doing with this? So basically, you're just reiterating these 2 steps 3 or 4 times until you get them somewhere into this age range, right? Now, if you don't get them all the way back to this age range, I'm not really that fussed. If you get close, that's fine. If you want to carry on, that's fine too. But remember, you're staying with positive things, you're learning with the positive suggestions, there's a positive experience, you're bouncing back. Each time that you bounce back, you orient. It's very important you orient. You don't just bounce and keep bouncing. You orient, you know, what do you see, what do you sense, is it inside, outside, daytime, nighttime, you're alone with people, what kind of things are happening around you, that sort of thing. Does that make sense? Do you think you can all do it? Oh, go ahead. Microphone, please.
In terms of languages, to bring the person back even more, do you want to say, in a moment we'll go back even more now, or
sure.
back to or do you see it at a specific age, or kind of let them choose that
At
age and
the
then ask them
beginning,
how old are you? Like,
exactly. In the beginning, at the first few bounces, let them choose how far back they bounce. Once you've done one or two bounces, so you've got familiar with the process, start asking them. So the first few times you might say something like, you know, so this is a great experience, are you having fun? Sure, great. So why not, let's go back in time to find another time where you felt this good. Right? So let's go back in time to find another time where you felt this good. I'll count from 3 to 1, at the count of 1, there you go. 3, 2, 1, boom, boom, boom. You can boink them, you can tap them, you can kick, well, don't kick them. But you can just move them back. Eventually, once you've done 1 or 2 bounces, you want to make sure you get towards the 2 to 8 age range, because that's really the area we were interested in, right? So at that point, just start asking them, so tell me, does this sound like the first time you've experienced this? Like, is it a new feeling? Or is it kind of familiar, like you've had it before? Something like that, right? Chances are they'll say, oh, it's familiar, I've had this before. Says, okay, let's go back to the first time. Now, the interesting thing is, even though you ask the first time, you'll often find them going back to something that's close to the first time, but there'll be another time they'll be able to bounce back to anyway, despite that, right? So see if you can take them back even further, and if it goes out in a circle, so it goes back to this exact same moment, chances are that you're there. But it's just just see what happens. That's the key thing. Stay with the positive emotions, and just bounce back. Initially, just wherever it goes, and eventually you'll target it so you can get it more towards that age range to the actual first experience. Does that make sense? Yes. There's a question here.
Let's say that you're
Okay.
working with somebody that speaks a different language that came from a language that you don't speak,
Mhm.
right? So they're 2 to 8 year old range.
That's why we have this.
The safety? What?
Well, boilerplate wine isn't just safety.
Oh,
It's sounds around you. My voice will go with you, and its meaning will continue to guide your experience.
if they start speaking in another language, does that happen? I mean, I would guess it would.
It can happen,
Really?
but if you put the boilerplates in before they change language, then they'll still understand you because my voice will go with you, and the meaning will guide your words wherever you go.
And then you just kind of gauge on physiology what's
Exactly.
happening. And
Now, in terms of doing therapy, if you don't speak the language that they start going into,
Right.
don't do it.
Right.
Just bring them back, and it's just try it. Just do something else with them instead. In terms of what you're doing here, actually bring them back anyway. But it's not a big deal because this is why we have these things, so you don't lose contact with your patients or your clients or whatever you call them. It's a great question, by the way. Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Has there ever been a time when you've taken your patient so deeply that they don't hear you at all and they therefore won't respond?
Well, yes and no. I've taken people so deeply that they seem not to respond, in which case you just bring the trance a little lighter to get more response out of them. And honestly, if you're using the kind of trances I'm teaching you here, which is the dynamic version, rather than just the talk at people version, then that won't happen because you're constantly in touch with them. You're constantly demanding a response, which prevents them from going to that place. But let's say they did go to that place, you do exactly the same thing as you do normally with someone who take out of hypnosis who's not quite arousing quickly enough. You insist more, you lift the trance a little bit, and so basically, if they're all the way down here, you just bring up to about there, and when they start responding again, you go on from there. Or you bring them all the way back and say, now, not so much fun, we're working here as well. Yeah, and people think that just because it's hypnosis, that their conscious mind has no involvement in it, and that's not true. You can start having a chat and say, hey, we'll sort this out. We're not just here for the fun ride. We're here to do work. So let's get to a level we can actually do some work here, please. Right? Good question. Just pass it forward.
Shall we keep them in this lifetime?
That would be nice. That would be nice. We'll talk about past life if you want after you've done this, but I want to just normal, nothing woo-woo, funny. I'm not denigrating past life regression. I'll happily chat to you about my perception of that later, but let's stick to what we're going to be using therapeutically rather than some interesting adventure that you can take people through. Okay? Everyone happy with this? So remember, the key thing here is you're going to stick to a positive emotion. Bring it up, intensify, bounce back. Can we have a microphone here, please?
I was just wondering, for this exercise, are we picking a positive emotion first, or can we still...
Yeah, either way. I'm fine.
Okay.
Right? I honestly don't care what the experience is. All I want to make sure is it's positive, because if you're learning, you may as well learn and enjoy, right? This is not your traditional, school environment. It's like learn or die. It's like learn and have fun at the same time. So you may as well, if they have something particular in mind, hey, go with that. And if they don't, go with something general. Or if you have something particular in mind for them, then ask them if it's okay with them. And if they're okay with it, then go with that. Everyone okay? Just make sure you look for congruence. That's the key thing. Okay, folks, we're going to give you a little bit longer for this one. We're going to give you about, say, 15 minutes apiece, just so you can really go into the whole bouncing back thing. 15 minutes apiece. I won't change you around. You guys, please pay attention a second. I will not give you a turnaround warning at this point. I want you guys to start being responsible for your own time, so you get a little bit more of a sense of, I'm working, but I'm still within a time frame. Make sense? So in half an hour, I'll come back and finish the exercise. If one of you has had 35 or 30 minutes of that and the other person had nothing, then, that's something you need to work out beforehand. So don't be selfish. Stick to your own time limit and give the other people a chance to have a go too. Okay? Have a go. In tones of gentle, quiet control. How was that? Did you guys enjoy it? Was it more fun than the last version of this? Right? Let me ask you this. Do you guys see the look of wonder on someone's face the first time they get to enjoy like a really positive emotions like happiness or joy or excitement, and realize that it's actually happening. It's not like a gift. It's just for you as a therapist to see that, right? So it's part of what we do as therapists. We get to see like a lot of the, shall we say, the negative stuff people go through, and from time to time it's kind of nice, I think, to remind ourselves that these tools do a lot, and they can do a lot of good without even having to have bad to resolve in the first place, right? So I think we're pretty much all back. Can we have some microphones here?
Right here, Igor.
Oh, okay, so we've got one here first. Go ahead.
Yeah, the question I had was, it's interesting because the person whom I was working with wasn't sure if I was going into regression because I didn't use the tense I.
Okay.
However, that was a good point. However, I have to say I didn't really feel that was relevant because a lot of the things she was asking me was, am I by myself or with other people? And those activities involved, like a wrestling match was one of them.
Right.
So I felt that it was impractical for me to say I in a situation where she brought me into a we.
And I totally understand that. I think that's absolutely appropriate. And remember, especially as children, sometimes children have weaker boundaries. They don't understand the difference between self and other. So that, sometimes it's just it's just a general thing, like you're part of the environment part of you. So that makes total sense. And also recall that, where are we here? We don't have to have a pure regression, right? We don't have to have an absolute pure regression. Anything from an intense revivification onwards is going to be enough for the work we want to do. So it sounds like, did you feel the experience?
Yeah, I did feel the experience, and she also did point out that, we didn't have to have a complete regression. However, even if it was a complete regression at that point, it's still, she says, well, are you with other people? So if it was other people in an activity that involves somebody, how can I really go to I?
Absolutely.
So
and this is a great point, because you've got to take the clients from where they're at, with their experiences, and you can't impose your experience on it, because otherwise you end up having, either false memory or something like that, right? Are you the working? Okay, go ahead.
She. I think he misunderstood. I wasn't saying that I was the issue, that he didn't get into the present tense.
Oh, the present, okay. Again.
And so that told me that he wasn't deeply regressed, but I understood that he was revivified, and that's why I told him that was
exactly. It looks like you guys did the right thing. Ultimately, all I'm looking for is, are you having the experience? Because then you can work with it. If you have an experience, you can work with it. If you're dissociated from the experience, then you can't. Simple as that. Because people dissociate from experiences to be protected from them, and you want to be in them.
So how important is tense? So like if she says, well, what happened? I say he grabbed. Do I have to say he grabs me, I stand up?
There's no rules. As a hypnotherapist, the preference is present tense, absolutely. And if you don't get it, if all the other things, all the other signs are in the right place, then you're good, right? So it's yes, you're quite right. You're looking for the present tense as a general rule, and if you don't get it, some people perceive time in different ways. Some people have different set of experiences. So you go with what you've got. The key thing is, and you'll know, you either get the result or you don't, right? You either get the change, in which case you've got it, or if you don't, then you have a pretty good reason where you went wrong. But it sounds like in this case, you got exactly what you needed, so I'm happy. Are you happy? I'm happy. We're all happy.
I just have one more question.
Go ahead.
Could you like for example, if I was the hypnotist and I was doing the questioning, to amplify that effect, could I say instead of what were you doing, could I change tense and say, what are you doing now?
In fact, that's exactly what I would do. That's remember we went to revivification before, on the second day?
Right.
You did exactly that switch?
Right.
Well, this is why.
Okay.
So that's exactly what I would do. Now, as long as you as a therapist remember to speak in the present tense, if they answer in the past tense, if you can see the shifts in their emotion and their experience, you're good. All good. Thank you for those questions. There's a microphone here somewhere. Go ahead.
It's kind of funny because my conscious mind started to interfering, and I was looking for my little brother. I was only 4 years old, and I turned around and I realized he wasn't there. That was such a funny moment because I was really expecting to see him. And then I turned around and he wasn't there. So
Right. So your conscious mind had an expectation of this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And your unconscious mind, well, no, that didn't happen at the time, so we're not going to go that way.
No.
Which is kind of charming for you to realize, right?
Yeah, it was cool.
So whoever your hypnotist was did a great job because, and this is really interesting, by the way, guys, because notice how, again, he has dual awareness. There's a conscious element involved in it, but what we're going for is the experience again, right? I don't care whether the conscious mind is involved in it or not. What I care whether or not it's interfering. If his conscious mind wanted the brother to be there so much that he kind of created it, then you have a false memory syndrome situation going on. Do you see what I mean by this? So the fact that the unconscious didn't go down that road and just gave you what was actually there, that's what we're looking for. So, well done. And you enjoyed it, right?
Yeah, the hot cocoa tasted beautiful.
Okay, who else has microphone things? No one? Back there, anyone?
I'm not sure what happened, but maybe Patrick can explain it better because he was the inducer and I was the inducee.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not really sure because I think I got locked up, didn't I, Patrick, somewhere? I'm not sure what the heck happened with me, but I think I was hatched, so I think that was the problem.
You were hatched?
Yeah, I was probably hatched. So
in a factory. Are you Robo-Man?
Yeah.
I knew someone would send it. You're from the government, aren't you?
But I'm from the government, and I'm here to take care of all your problems. Yeah.
No, I'm not going back into the cell. I'm not taking the blue pill. So, who was working with you?
Patrick.
So, Patrick, do you have a question about this, or I'm not entirely sure what the question or thing is here?
Well, the thing, and I wanted maybe Patrick maybe be able to give more light to this, but this regression part, I don't think I ever got there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I did, I don't know. I know he got me very deeply relaxed.
Okay.
And I know I was kind of agitated. I could feel some agitation until he told me this thing about flipping off a switch and I'd be disconnected from my body, and then all of a sudden I felt like I was disconnected from my body. But
great, so the hypnosis is working anyway.
Right, but I don't know what else happened because it was also
okay.
maybe about love, and I remember a lot of concrete, so...
So you remember a lot of concrete.
Right, right.
Well, that's interesting. So when you were doing the regression, first of all, did you experience a strong positive emotion or not?
He wanted to experience love.
Okay, love's a good thing, right?
And he started experiencing love and was doing the orientation.
Okay.
And he said it was like lava. And it was starting to flow into into his being and flow into his body. And then he said, I asked him some further questions on orientation, and he said it was becoming hardened like concrete.
Oh, okay, I see what's happened here. It seems very straightforward, and carry on if you want, although I think I pretty much have an idea of what's happened. This wasn't a regression, although what you did was an interesting experience anyway. You just switched into a dynamic induction of a sort. You actually turned to a symbolic level rather than to an experiential level. And that's all that happens. Why? Because you allowed him, and that's part of just how you express yourself. You express yourself in metaphorical language. You know, it's like lava flowing into me. It's beautiful. It's like a light shining and stuff like that, which is fine. But rather than searching for concrete experiences, you know, how old are you? Where are you? Outside, inside, etc. You're allowing the metaphor, the symbol, to express itself to such an extent that became the dominant part of the reality rather than the memory and hence the regression element of it. Does that make sense? So remember, where attention flows, energy goes. So you allow the attention to flow into a symbol, into a metaphor, to such an extent that became the experience. It's not a problem. It's just a result of where you let the attention go. Does that make sense?
It does. So how would we make sure that the emotion of love, rather than being focused on it, it goes to...
Sure, it's simple. I mean, you know what it feels like to have love, right?
Right.
I mean, what? How do you know when you have love? When you're experiencing love?
It's urgent, and it's encompassing, and it's flowing. And
sure, and you can definitely remember a time you've had that sort of experience, right? I mean, you've had that experience before, at least once in your life.
Yes.
Right? Like, give me an example when. You don't have to give me the details, just like a date or a time period or a location is fine.
1991.
1991. And were you on your own or were other people around? Again, no details, just were you alone or was someone else there?
Alone.
You were alone. And you felt an emotion, right?
Right.
It was strong?
It's actually 92, I'm sorry, but yeah.
It was 92, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It really was 92. And as you think about that now, you know, it takes you back, doesn't it? To 92. And being alone and really experiencing and appreciating what love really means, right? And tell me, was it daytime or nighttime? Just look outside or wherever the...
It was inside.
It's inside, right? Now, do you see what we're doing now? We're orienting him to the memory. You can feel this, right? Now, I don't want to intrude. I don't know what the kind of memory it is, and I don't want to intrude in it. Hence, I'm trying to stay out of it. But do you notice how, as I ask you, even not those non-specific questions, how that experience becomes more intense? Now, as far as you're concerned, I would encourage you to just enjoy the experience to the extent that it's pleasant, and allow that afterglow to follow you back into the present, into the room where we are here, so that when you are here with us, there you go, you can appreciate that love can follow you in ways that, you know, you get to discover, which is nice, right?
Actually, now the concrete aspect becomes very clear as well now.
So that probably might have been an association that is attached to the time, I imagine, right? And again, you don't have to tell us details. It's a personal thing, and you chose a very personal moment, I suspect. So, you see what I'm doing? Rather than allowing him to go into the symbolic element or the other parts of the association, I'm looking for concrete elements of the experience, and that is orienting him into the experience. In my mind, I'm thinking of, I'm a movie director. I have to shoot the movie of his life, of his emotion. Where am I? Who am I with? What's my lighting situation? You know, camera action, right? Those are I need to be able to create that movie in my mind, and I'm asking questions about that. If I get a symbolic element back, that's all well and good information. It's probably useful for intensifying the state, but I'm still going to go back to my movie. It's like, okay, that's well good. You've got your motivation now. Well done, actor. Now tell me, you know, is it daytime, nighttime, inside, outside? What are things are you seeing? If this were more a private session, so that I'm just trying to respect your privacy, I don't want to invade, you know, something which is a very personal moment, then I'd probably ask him more specific details. If this was a therapeutic moment, I'd probably do that as well, because I want to make sure that he's firmly oriented in it. And you all saw, even without a formal trance induction, how deeply, and it was quite a strong feeling, right? And you all saw how deeply it affected him. And you can do it. It's called a revivification. That's essentially what you're doing here. You're just using a stylized process to get there, and you're using the emotion first, because that helps you find a lifeline to get the kind of experiences you're looking for, right? And it helps you as also a therapist to orient yourself more easily, because you've got steps to go through, rather than doing the more amorphous version there. Are you back with us? How are you doing? Good?
Fine.
Good. Do you have a follow-up question, or are you good with that?
No, I'm good with that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And thanks for bringing it up. Next person. Here, hello.
Igor, first of all, this is a great exercise, great experience. The thing that I'm curious about, there's some schools that emphasize as a therapist to stay away from regression. Mm-hmm. And I was just curious to know, what are your thoughts as to when you should avoid regression if a client comes to you and asks you to do regression? Well,
as a rule, clients ask you for regression either one of two reasons. Number one, they've been to some kind of psychoanalyst that said you've got a messed up past, and they're trying to go back to just figure out what's going on and resolve it, because they've been told that's what they need to do. The other reason is because they're curious, voyeuristic. Typically they'll ask you for a past life regression, not just a simple regression. And the key thing is to realize it's a conscious mind coming to you with a question, so the conscious mind doesn't know what the problem is. So I'd follow the problem rather than their request. So if they're coming to you for therapy. If they're coming to you for more, shall we say, entertainment hypnosis, or just to explore something just for the hell of it, then you make a judgment call whether or not you want to do that, right? And that's a personal call you have to make, whether you think it's ethical within the context that you've got available, if you want to do that or not. In terms of doing regression work, I think it's great work to do. I think it's kind of a nice general cure-all. I know people who do great work with nothing but regression. That's all they do. And they do great work and very impressive work. This is a conversational program, so I want to give you skills that are therapeutic as well as things you can apply outside of that context. So that the model we've created is one which is systematic. So when one fails, like the CP1, when that fails, you go to CP2. When that fails, which will typically be when there's a strong emotion that you can't overcome with the language. You actually can. It's just you may feel stuck because you're either following a loop or the emotion just won't go away. Then the simpler route is to follow the emotion back into regression and deal with it that way. It's just a simpler route. It doesn't mean you can't do it another way. You absolutely can. So when schools say, you don't do regressions, bad, not necessary, well, that's an opinion. I've seen great work done with it, so it obviously works. I've also seen great work done without it, so that obviously works. What I'm giving you is hopefully options. If you choose to do regression, great. If you never do regression again in your life, that is entirely your choice. The other tools you get will still work just the same. It's still useful to know about them, because that's part of your training. And if something happens like a spontaneous regression, you won't freak out and go, ah! Touching them and hugging them and go, it's all right, right? So you know what's happening, you know how to deal with it, you know it's no big deal, and you know how to bring them back out, should it not be appropriate for what you're doing, right? So I think it's absolutely an important part, I'll come to you in a second, it's absolutely an important part of the process that you should be aware of and have an experience of. And then if you decide that you don't like regression, you decide you agree with the philosophy of people that say, let the past lie in the past, it's fine. Do it the way you want to do it. The other tools, with enough skill and experience, will do the same job. Does that answer your question? Yes. Thank you. It's a good question. Back here, go ahead.
I'd like to say thanks, another breakthrough. For a short period of time, I did regression full-time. Mm-hmm. And I've always wanted to go step by step into the womb when I was conceived as a fetus.
Okay.
And I chose one or two people in the room to go with me, and they said no, and I chose somebody I've never been, and the person said yes, and the person's a newbie and did a wonderful, wonderful job. And I even went right to the time of conception. Yahoo!
Great. And congratulations. Now, I think that deserves a nice little round of applause.
Oh, that's the other side of the story.
Okay.
I'm confiding with you some unusual secrets. My mother tried to abort me 3 times.
Okay.
And she didn't have the heart to tell me. She told me at her deathbed, not directly, but through my sister. She never ever had a heart to tell me.
Okay.
And all my life, I never remembered laughing until some 10 years ago. I realized I never remember hearing my own laughter. So I called a few of my friends, and we have a sleepover at a friend's house, and I asked one of my friends to do a regression on me. She doesn't know how to do it, but I instructed her.
Okay.
She did it on
Interesting.
me. And now she is a very talented psychic.
Okay.
All right? And then for the first time I laughed, and I've never stopped laughing ever since.
Good for you. Great.
And this time going back into a womb is actually phenomenal. All my life I've been wanting to do that, and I did it.
Hey, we make dreams come true. Good job. And just to address something that I've been actually talking to some of the assistants earlier on whilst you're doing your exercise, what I am so excited about, watching you guys do your work, I have no idea, watching you, and I'm a professional, I've done this for a long time, and I know how this works, and I can tell good from bad. I have no idea who amongst you has been doing this for years professionally, and who amongst you didn't do anything before you started on Saturday morning with me. No idea. I could not say, okay, they've done more, they haven't done. I honestly haven't got a clue. So, I think the idea of newbie versus experience, right now you may as well throw it out the window. You're all great hypnotists, and I honestly mean that. I'm so impressed by the stuff you're doing. There's someone over here. Go ahead.
I just had a question on this. Have you noticed, is there, let me preface it this way. through other trance experiences we've had with the DMI and other things, I've had no problem doing visual construct in trance, right? And then we did this regression, and I had an excellent hypnotist. It's not
great.
He really is good, and I had trouble getting visual. On the is that a normal kind of thing? And I, because I feel like I'm a reasonable trance subject. I mean, I can get into trance, but how do I know that it's not my conscious mind interfering?
Well, first of all, it's totally natural, because when you do different types of things, your mind just triggers with different things, and it's fine, right? Second of all, you can actually get the visual element back should you need it. It's just a question of being a little bit more insistent. It's like on the very first day, I think the bonus day was when we did catalepsy, and some people went so relaxed that you really do have to work to bring them up a little bit more and focus a little bit more to get the catalepsy, because the arm just wants to flop down. And remember, we talked about the solution there. It's about insisting. It's about, but gently, not in a sense like, I'm controlling you now, but more in the sense of, come on, this is what we're doing, come with the program, this is what we need to have. And that's kind of the direction I would take it in. It may also be that your unconscious mind decided that the kinesthetic, the emotional part of the experience was so important that that's more important, so that's fine too, right? Now, in terms of did your conscious mind interfere with it or not, who knows? The point is, did you get the value out of the experience that needed to happen? And like happened, with Rick, he can't visualize. You can still have the full experience without seeing anything. And the weird thing is, when you ask questions about the experience, you can still answer them accurately without knowing where that comes from. Does that make sense? I'll share a personal experience in that in a moment if you want, just to put that in context. Years ago, I was seeing another great hypnotist, a guy called Steve Brooks, great Ericksonian, very good indirect stuff. And I was on his seminar, and I'm watching it and seeing him and loving it. And I come up to him during the break and said, what would really be interesting is, if you put someone in trance for the entire week to watch you do the work, and then afterwards find out what the unconscious learned about what you're doing. So I said, great idea. Are you volunteering? Okay. So I was basically a trance zombie for a week. Seriously, I was so spaced out, it's unreal. And I was just sitting there in my chair, like this. Had anyone walked in, they would have just thought, all right, this guy's being ready to be wheeled out, right? So I was just there. I just said nothing. I did nothing. I just watched and watched and watched. And kind of like you were, Erica, before. This is why I totally get where you're coming from. I was so blank, I did not have a clue. But then the crazy stuff happens, because end of the week rolls up, and everyone's curious, what's this little experiment? What's come of it, right? Now, I get massive performance anxiety. It's like, I don't know anything. I don't remember anything he did. I don't actually know anything at all. So he whacks me in trance, and I feel really sorry for him right now. It's like, oh my God, here's this really competent hypnotist, does great work. He's putting me in trance in front of the whole group, and it's not going to happen. It's just and I'm like, my anxiety is getting sky high. So he does the induction, a little deepener, some fun bits and pieces. Does a great job distracting me. Starts asking me questions, and I'm going, oh my God, this is going to be embarrassing. So he asked me a question. I can't even remember what it was now. And I start answering it. I'm going, oh, this is funny, like my mouth's talking, but maybe I should stop. My consciousness is right there saying, I could stop this any time. I'm feeling like I'm making it up, but it sounds decent. So I'm thinking like, I'll let this come out because it sounds like, vaguely intelligent, and that might help him save face. So, like, I'm there, and I can literally stop if I want to, because like dual consciousness, and my mouth's talking away, he's asking questions, and I'm answering them. And by the end of it, people are like having standing ovations, and he actually comes up and says, this is so cool, because he was actually followed by a psychologist for, a 2-week period with a video camera, writing down every word and trying to write a book on about how he does what he does. Couldn't do it. Didn't actually get the essence. He said, and unfortunately we lost a transcript. This is a real bummer. Someone actually wrote a transcript of it. He said, this is the closest to description of what I do that I've ever heard. I have no idea where it came from. I'm serious. It's just like, and I thought I was making it up. I thought I was making it up to be nice, and just saying stuff that didn't quite make sense. And what can you do, right? So trance is not always a clear-cut experience. It can be hazy, and that's fine. The key thing to look for again is: have you seen before? Are they having the experience? Is it working? I'm always looking for the emotion. That's where the work gets done. right? Are they in the emotion they need to be, or are they interfering with the process in some way? And that's really the key. So, does that answer your question at all?
Yeah. So the main thing is are they in the emotion that they need to be in? Just let that be.
And can they answer your questions?
And
without like going, well, I think this happened, as opposed to, are you inside or outside? Inside. You don't know why you're saying it, but you kind of, it feels like it's the right thing, so you say it, right? As opposed to like, well, I guess I was inside because, it was a Tuesday, and on Tuesday I usually went to the playground, and I must have been inside. That's not the right answer. But like, are you inside or outside? I'm inside. And if I had to justify it, you probably couldn't, but you said it anyway. I think, and think about it now, it might be a version of the veil of consciousness we talked about before, and it might be a version of that, I don't know, I might be making it up, who knows. But the point is, if they're in the emotion, and they can answer your questions directly without thinking about it too much, then you've got what you need.
So you probably want to, I'm guessing, then just fire the questions, and if
you want to keep a reasonable pace.
You want to keep it moving.
You want to, exactly, that's exactly right. The pace is very important in this thing. You want to basically keep their conscious mind a little bit behind also the times, so they can't interfere with what's going on. If you do the traditional, so, are you, right? By this time the conscious mind is going, hell, I'm inside, all right? just talk a little faster. So, yeah, I mean, this is the beauty. This actually speeds up your whole process. So, yeah, good. Thank you. Who, where, what? Oh, hello.
Just a quick question. You said there were two reasons that people normally came to you requesting regressions. The first was because a psychoanalyst told them that their past was messed up.
Or some form of something like that,
or something like that. What was the second?
Because they're curious. They just want to do it as a voyeuristic thing. And sometimes voyeuristic is not necessarily bad. For example, when Gloria was talking about how she'd always want to be regressed to the womb, great. If it makes a life ambition come true, why not, right? Happened to me by accident. I was in Argentina, and the classic thing, the big party, and people saying, "Oh, you hypnotist? I've always wanted to be hypnotized." I said, "Okay, sure." Walk into a quieter area and say, "Okay, I'd like you to think of an experience. Don't tell me what it is. Just think of an experience that you'd like to, re-experience that would be nice for you. Make sure it's pleasant. No horror stories, thank you." And we'll do that. So I put her in trance and did the whole catalepsy. Everyone like, "Oh my God, the arm is in the air on its own." No, it's attached to the body. But it gets impressive because you've got something unusual happening. Anyway, I set her up for a regression. When the hand finds its own point, it will just drop, and the moment it drops, you'll be in the experience. You get to experience it like it's there for the first time all over again. Now, little did I know that she chose the most important moment in her life to go back to. Right? She was, 4 or 5 years old. Her best friend, the one person that she'd learned everything about love and friendship from, and who then she lost contact with, and it turned out when she tried to get back in contact, had died in an accident. So this is like all this stuff going off in her mind. And she comes back, and she's like, I actually thought she's having a great experience because she's very quiet. She comes back, and she looks at me and says, "Oh my God, that was the most important experience I've ever had in my entire life." I was like, "Thank you for telling me afterwards, because before the pressure might have been a bit too much," right? So things like that, by all means, that's a great thing to do. But you make a judgment call whether it's worth it or whether it's just like someone's being a bit silly and you don't really want to go down that route. Because remember, what you're doing is an important tool as well, right? So you should treat it with respect. It's not like something you just throw out there for the hell of it. Give people experiences, and use silly experiments if you want, but make sure that the things that have the greatest impact on people are also treated with respect. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question at all?
Yes.
There's someone over here who... Go ahead.
Do you, as far as using regression as one of the techniques or formats of going back, what about, for example, anger? They want to find out where they began. In other words, is this something that you want to do with regression?
We'll come on to that tomorrow. We'll come on to exactly all that stuff tomorrow. Right now, I just want to get you versed in the ability to navigate through someone's mind and deal with the emotional aspect. And let some of the smaller, shall we say, teething problems like, orienting within the experience, maybe not having a full representation of the experience, these sort of things to come out now in a safe context, so you have the experience of it when it really doesn't matter, right? Then we'll talk about tomorrow about how to use this in a therapeutic context with big emotions that really do matter, where you want to be a little bit more on the ball to make sure that you are taking care of people. So this is the training wheels. These are the training wheels for something bigger. Does that make sense? Because this is pretty much this is hardcore pattern. This is like if you're going to do the, shall we say, pornography, this is about the stuff that's going to get banned because it's like about hardcore stuff. So I want you to treat it with respect. And I want you to know, have a sense that you know what you're doing, and that you can navigate through it, that you can do the whole ab-reaction stuff if it becomes too much for you to handle, that you can move through the experiences when you need to, in the way that you need to. And that way, you have the choice as a therapist. You go there because you know you're competent and can do it, and it has tremendous relief. Or you choose not to because you can't do your client justice, but then you're doing good work anyway, either way. Does that make sense? So if I haven't answered your question probably tomorrow, ask me again, and I fully will address negative emotions and that whole cycle. Okay?
If we're not doing forensic regression, the purpose of the orienting questions, I guess, is what? If the key is the emotion,
Great question.
Because when I was doing it, he was clearly feeling the emotion, expressing the emotion, without me asking anything. And then I asked questions, well, what's the room, all of that, but I didn't feel like I needed to.
You may not sometimes. The reason for asking is simply to orient them into it. So some people are kind of there, but there's no real information there, like that veil of consciousness, and they need to be in the experience. It basically makes the experience more real for them. And you want that, especially when you just start doing therapeutic work. It's all those situational triggers that you're going to end up lying flat. Because let's imagine, actually let's take Dave's example, if I make that's an elegant example of what I'm talking about. Let's say instead of using mind-bending language, we had decided to use a regression, which we could equally have done, back to that moment when the cat stares out of the darkness. That's a classic regression moment, right? Now, we have some contextual markers there, which the fear is attached to. The eyes are probably a big one, and I imagine when you see cat's eyes, or used to see cat's eyes, that was one of the big things that, more so than the rest, made you kind of like, oh, jump. And that makes sense, because that's where the experience came from, right? So you want to have those contextual markers so that when you run the emotion dry, which I'll show you how to do tomorrow, maybe later today, when you run the emotion dry so it's drained out, then it's drained out in context of the trigger as well, right? So then the triggers are dead, they no longer do anything. That's why you're learning to orient within the process. We'll cover this more tomorrow, but you want to orient to make it more real, to make sure that it's not just a memory, or not just a symbol of something, but something very concrete. And you're orienting so that when you do drain the emotion from it, it drains from something, from the actual memory, so that the triggers, the ones that actually end up causing the problem, have been drained as well. Does that make sense? It's a great question, by the way. Thank you. You guys asking some amazing questions. You know this? It's like you're channeling like master hypnotist. Is like, let's see this guy really knows what it's about. These are great questions. I'm really impressed. Who had a microphone here? Everyone is done? Happy? Wow, that's in first. So, you having fun with this? Interesting stuff? Learning something, right? The pace should now be a bit clearer for you, a little bit slower and a little bit clearer, because we reached that part of the training.